got Mr. Ryan Hartman, our Human Resources Manager. We got Mr. Shane Blazer, Mayor, and Ms. Susan Schill, City Attorney, Ms. Dean Alderperson, and I don't see anybody else. Is there anybody else who is participating with this meeting? I said Ryan. Yeah. Joe Zerflu, committee member, is absent, and he's got an excused absence. For committee members, it'll just be myself and Mr. Jay Bemke. With that being said, we'll go on to item number 2. Item number 1 was called a meeting to order. Item number 2, discuss and consider for approval wage adjustments for internal equity purposes for 4 administrative positions within the police department. Mr. Hartman, will you kind of lead us out with this?
You bet. Thank you. Good evening. We noticed that there were 4 admin positions within the police department in the clerical that never got moved into the grade step process. And that has been for a few years. So all we are asking to do this evening is proposing that we move those 4 individuals into their correct or into where the slotted appropriate grade and step measure would be at this time. And then obviously as we go through the in our hopes of the reevaluation of all positions in 2021, look at it again at that time. So our proposal is within the packet there for those 4 positions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hartman at all, committee members? Jay, no, anybody else? Anybody else attending? Any questions, concerns? I don't have anything myself, Ryan. Thank you for explaining that. I would imagine your recommendation as Human Resources Manager would be to approve what's presented here.
That is correct.
With that being said, I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
A motion on the floor by Kubiszak, second by Bemke, to approve wage adjustments for internal equity purposes for 4 administrative positions within the police department. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 2-0. We'll move on to item number 3. Discuss and consider for approval a new position of Parks and Recreation Coordinator to replace the Parks and Recreation Administrative Assistant position, along with compensation and job description approval. See attachment, and it for everybody's viewing pleasure, we don't have that attached here, but it should be attached, or if anybody's got any questions or concerns, committee members and council members have that in front of them. Mr. Hartman, are you going to lead this off, or is that Mr. Terry or Mr. Vollard? Are you guys addressing this at all?
For the proposal for the Parks and Rec Coordinator, that would be myself. It is currently the Park and Rec, the admin assistant, and we'd like to create that position of Parks and Rec Coordinator, and proposing this evening that we move that position to a pay grade of 7.
Is there any questions by committee or anybody else? I don't have any questions either. If that's a recommendation by yourself, Mr. Hartman, then I'll go ahead and make a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Kubiszak, second by Bemke to approve, and I'll get the wording right here, to approve a new position of Parks and Recreation Coordinator to replace the Parks and Recreation Administrative Assistant position, along with compensation and job description approval. If there's necessary budget implications for this, Mr. Hartman. Will you speak with the mayor on that and work with his executive budget to ensure that we can move forward on this then? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it 2-0. We will go on to item number 4. Discuss and consider for approval the addition of a second street supervisor position with Department of Public Works, along with compensation and job description. And we've got an attachment on the committee here. Who, Mr. Hartman, or is this Mr. Terry or Mr. Vollert, who'd like to start with this?
Sure, I can start, Mr. Kubaschak, and we've had multiple meetings as a group, and in talking with supervisors and managers and former supervisors, we are proposing to add an additional second street supervisor with the grade of 12, which is equivalent to the other current street supervisor, in the hopes of, obviously, with the amount of employees within the street department, we feel there's a potential need for at least a trial of a second street supervisor. We know this is not a be-all, end-all fix, but it is a step in the right direction. There's no money being increased or not asking for money and that's as much as I know in the details of it for the most part, and that's why Mr. Vollert and Mr. Terry are present, and they can speak to the matter, more in depth if there are any questions.
Any committee members have questions? Anybody else have any specific questions, I guess, for Mr. Terry or Mr. Vollert? I do not. Mr. Mayor, I've seen you kind of moving around. Do you have anything?
Yeah, Thad, just so this position is going to be funded by a vacant street position open currently, and also a LTE position that has not been filled. If Paul can correct me if I'm wrong, for quite a while. And so the combination of those two will go to fund this position.
Anybody have any specific questions at all? Anybody in the interweb area have any specific questions? With that being said, I assume that Mr. Hartman, this obviously is recommendation for approval, so I'll make that motion. And let me read the item. I'll make a motion to approve the addition of a second street supervisor position with Department of Public Works, along with compensation and job description. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor by Kubaschak, second by Bemke to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 2-0. We'll move on to item number 5, discuss and consider approval of a non-union general employee wage increase for 2020. Now, when I read this, is it 2020 or is it 2021 for the next calendar year?
Thank you, Mr. Kubaschak. You are correct. It would be for 2021. My apologies.
And that's fine. I don't think that there's any transparency issues with this. I think that I'll just amend it in my motion. With this being, is there any discussion with the committee? Mr. Bemke, do you have any questions, concerns? What have we done in the past? Is this just a general recommendation of what we've done in the past then? Mr. Mayor or Mr. Hartman, if you want to elaborate into that.
So the recommendation for this year is what the union contracts are going to, or for 2021, the 2.5% is the contracted rate for those groups. And so we've historically been equitable across all groups then at that point.
So is that the recommendation is 2.5%, or should we tie it specifically to what the collective bargaining agreements are? Or is there any collective bargaining agreements up? Is everybody still in contract?
So police and fire contracts are still in contract for 2021. And so that rate is 2.5% for 2021. And so the recommendation, and Ryan can chime in also, is that it would be consistent across all the other non-unions then.
Yes, that is correct.
I guess that makes sense for me. So I'll make any questions, concerns, anybody got anything? I'll make a motion to approve a non-union general employee wage increase for the calendar year 2021 for the amount of 2.5% increase that mirrors what we have on the collective bargaining units, the two collective bargaining units with the city. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor by Kubaschak, second by Bemke to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it 2-0. And the last item is adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Motion on the floor by Kubaschak, second by Bemke to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it 2-0, and meeting is adjourned at 4:50 p.m. And thanks everybody for participating.